Looks good. Yes.
Okay, great.
Well, welcome everybody. Happy to see we got a pretty good sized group today. I think that Angela Anderson's reputation has preceded her. She's one of our well-known, well-recognized speakers. I'll start off by thanking the Foundation of the Arts and Sciences once again for hosting these Science Saturdays. And Danielle Kerner. I don't know if Danielle's on or not, but as the director at the foundation, she's had quite a hand in expanding our scientific activities there. So I'm very happy to work with her and with the others, and want to thank them for sponsoring these. And just remind everybody, the foundation is a wonderful place, lots of activities. Think about joining the foundation. They can use your support, and also think about participating in the many wonderful activities that they have. Summertime is coming. They'll have their catalog out soon. You'll hear more about that in the future, but just want to thank all those people. And I'll give Angela a little introduction. Most importantly, she's a really good friend, and we've been friends for a long, long time on LBI. So I'm introducing a friend. But she was also on the board at the Foundation of the Arts and Sciences, and actually she's been over the past, I think it's about 15 years. Correct me if I'm wrong, Angela. Um, that you've been instrumental in establishing many of the science-related activities at the foundation. And 15, 20 years ago, when I first got involved, that's what the board at that time wanted to do, was expand the scientific part of the foundation. And I remind everybody that art and science are really linked through the commonality of observation. Like the best artists are the ones who can observe something and then recreate it in song or poetry or art or pottery or whatever. And the best scientists are those that observe things. And we were just talking about this before. You start off with the what is it? And then you want to know how is it that that works? So art and science are linked in those two. So that's kind of I frequently say that. But on to Angela, she's the Resilience Project Manager for Long Beach Township, and she manages the township's Marine Education Field Station in Holgate. And if you haven't been there, put that on your list of things to see and do on LBI, especially in the shoulder season before things get real busy. But there's a lot that goes on down there, and Angie will tell you more about that. And they have a website and those kinds of things. She's also a certified Oyster Ambassador through the Oyster Master Guild, and she was the producer of a great little video about oyster farming in Barnegat Bay, and she can tell you more about that too. She's also an award-winning sustainability leader with three decades in the field. That's 30 years. She started very young. She was a toddler when she started. She's a certified recycling professional, sustainable resource management professional. She has her master's and bachelor degree, a whole lot of, we were talking about a whole lot of letters after your name. But the most important thing is that she loves the environment. She loves to learn about the environment. She loves to teach people about the environment. And she works tirelessly to protect it and help others to enjoy it and protect it. So, finally, she's got a husband, two kids, and no longer a puppy, a Long Beach Island dog. And Long Beach Island dogs are special. Okay, Angela, take it away.
That was lovely. Thank you, Rick. I appreciate that lovely and warm introduction. I've been doing the Science Saturdays since we thought of the idea to do Science Saturdays. So it's really nice to see this legacy continue and the diversity of programming and all that kind of stuff. So I'll just get right to it. So we talked a little bit about the field station, and I don't know if we were all together, I would make a show of hands, who's been here, who hasn't been here. We always love new people and we love our repeat participants. So when we created this facility on the south end, there was a lot of knowledge that was transferred from LBIF, right? Working closely with Rick, establishing when the Petralias were kind of handing off the torch on really putting the science back in LBIF. Working so hard up there, it almost made it kind of easy when we had the opportunity for this blank space, the town purchasing an old marina property that was vacant. So we built it really from the ground up, but a lot of the knowledge base and model was after, what we do up at the foundation. So we kind of love that. We have, the north end and the south end sharing that. The one thing sort of we added that enriching it is I really do think about it as an innovative resilience hub because we have the lab space downstairs and there's the real science happening and that interface of the community and the real science. So we'd love for you to sign up for our newsletter. Go to the website. You can sign up there. We have summer programs, but we do a lot of other things in the shoulder season. So please check us out and follow us on Instagram and social. And it's a beautiful building. Um, but the only thing is, the parking's pretty bad, but we make do. So we'd love to see you there. So where are we? I'm going to assume most people know where we are, but I always think it's really important. There might be a couple of new people, um, new to the area or new to the island. I think they're sometimes surprised when you think of Long Beach Island. Like doing this work on Long Beach Island has many challenges that maybe other, coastal towns don't have. We're 18 miles. I think everybody knows that. It's in like on the old time, promotion for the area. But township, Long Beach Township, is 12 non-contiguous of those 18 miles, right? And there's 6 towns. So when you think about, addressing issues, you have to look at holistically at the island. And when we look at the township specifically, the issues that are facing Holgate really are quite different than in our High Bar Harbor, say, northernmost section of township. So, I'll talk a little bit more later about what that means and how do you do that? How do you have some equity when you're talking about doing this type of work? But the focus mostly today to use as the model for the talk is our Clam Cove project. There's been a lot of coverage about it in the sandpaper. But where that
So,
oh, hello?
oh,
Did someone have a question? Okay, sorry. So our Clam Cove project down in Holgate is adjacent to our field station right there. So if you come on down the island, a lot of people think we're Beach Haven because we're a block to the south, but we're right in Holgate, and this is our Clam Cove project site right there. And my office is just off the different distance out of the frame of that drone picture, just up here to the left. But you can see this washover area up here from Sandy Storm, right? So that was when this whole entire parcel became available for sale, so as to keep development from happening because so much sand washed over from the dunes onto the wetlands, enabling construction. So the line is sort of here. This is Star Avenue. This is Rosemma Avenue if you're coming down the boulevard, and Osborne is up over here. So that gives you some context of our project site. This is the area that we're focusing on currently, but this is an 800, 900 long shoreline that has become a project focus for us. But we purchased this in cost share with Ocean County through our Natural Lands Trust. So one of the strategies that we've employed is having this open space trust in township. We passed it after Sandy, prioritizing open space and natural lands primarily on the north end of the island to accommodate for public access for the beach replenishment. But we really started looking at it for its other value, right? That open space, that natural lands. Historically, when you look at this parcel, you can see it was a peninsula with a very, very, this is off the side. So this is where, say, Rosemma comes down, right? But you can see it was completely connected. There was like it's still almost in a similar shape. But this has now completely broken through. And anybody that fishes, right, around here. One of the strains on this, right, when we think about public access and the way that we utilize our public access areas, when you get to the bottom um, or like to the western side of Rosema onto Star Avenue, onto this cul-de-sac, this has become a problem, and this is, I think, what has maybe impacted this a lot, is you can get here, and this is very deep water. Monmouth Urban Coast Institute does a lot of their shark studies in this area. It's an area where someone can fish actually successfully from the street end, right? If you think about the way our street ends are. So there's a lot of extra pressures on this area that have contributed. People would come out, they'd walk across, they could walk along the whole peninsula. And even when once you break that, right, and we think about the way the marsh functions, and this is what's transferable to the bigger picture here, is it quickly starts eroding. So that cut has blown up even in the 5 years since we've been studying it, because the rate of erosion and marsh loss that we're seeing bay wide, this is a representative of that, of how quickly it goes once the condition of the marsh is compromised. So time isn't on our side. We're starting to see chunks. We're starting to see different, pieces come off. So when we purchase land like this, we are the stewards of it. Just like anybody else, you're going to buy a house, you're going to fix it up, you're going to maintain your land, you're going to put your fences up, you're going to make sure your trees are healthy. Same idea here. And the township took that seriously. And really, right when we opened the facility, we were able to secure federal money right out of the gate, to address this. Simultaneously, this is an area where I'd like to see some people, like in our community, can really embrace this Bay Islands initiative. So this was happening all at the same time. COVID was a terrible time, but this is something that was born of COVID. We're just about to open the field station for the community, where we've purchased this one of these. We've actually have two islands that we purchased, but this Bay Islands initiative is this broader view of what does this mean? Like, we didn't just, we have one island that we bought, but there's many. And so we've got a coalition together to place value on these marsh islands, right? We really need to say, like, we love the beach, we love the beachfront. We've got a lot of marsh and marsh islands, and they're these kind of bookends that hold us together. And the Fish and Wildlife Service are the largest landowner of those marsh islands. Township purchased a couple. A lot are state owned, but there's several privately owned ones. So we've embraced some of the privately owned ones, and we've never missed a meeting except for one, when Virginia, our co-founder, retired, and her retirement luncheon was during one of our meetings. It's the only meeting we've ever missed monthly since COVID started, and it is an opportunity. Sorry, I'm having trouble with my forwarding here. Just give me 1 second. It's always the technology that gets me. Hang on, stay with me. I don't know why
There you go.
okay. Sorry about that. So one of the really interactive data tools, and for anybody interested in learning more about our area, this is a really great tool to be able to dive into right off of the Bay Island website. Our Bay Island Restoration Planner, BURP, named it that on purpose because we wanted people to remember it and that acronym, and we're all about acronyms in this business. But this is neat. People that live here, they might see some of these islands out there, and we have an inventory from the Mantoloking area down through the Great Bay, and we're trying to move south. We worked with Nature Conservancy, Stockton University, and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and we were able to map out the data that already existed, and then some of the field data, that we were able to collect on some of our projects. 160 islands in our bay, in our watershed alone, and that it tells a really big story, because obviously these marshes in our bay have a purpose, and the more we know about them, the more we know maybe their potential for stabilization, restoration, or what have you. So this database really tells the story of each of these islands, ownership, how it's been eroding, and how it's been behaving for decades, in order for us to know if we can approach them. But one of the other things that I think, from a community standpoint, off of the Bay Islands Initiative. We have this new campaign we're going to be sort of launching this year. Big Wake, Big Mistake. We're thinking of trying to get with our communities, our the boat ramps, the bait and tackle stores. We have some information sheets that we've compiled just to people to connect when they're out on a vessel and what that means. There are distances to these shorelines that we, are required to be so that we're not eroding. The marshes are eroding for various reasons. Some are not in our control, like big storms, sediment deficit, all those bigger things. But when it comes to the boats and the boat wakes, there is a way that we can have a public education campaign. So keep an eye out for this. We'll work it into some of the stuff at LBIF. We're going to work it into our programming down in the field station. And anybody that has any ideas on a good way to get this out there, I was thinking of getting with the mates and the mates students over in Manahawkin. But this is a real tangible thing. This is a real visual thing. And the bay is pretty busy in the summertime. So there's a lot of boats out there. There's a lot of big engines. There's a lot of multi-engine boats. So um, it's like white on white. Sorry, I'm trying to. Okay. So this is the funding that we got. We got federal funding to focus on 5 Bay Islands to test out that database. So we focused on 5 islands off of the township, but really it's the project team that started forming early on when we're looking at these islands. And that's where the community comes in. Their community groups, our taxpayers association, really embracing the areas where these Bay Islands that we're focusing in is, and then coming onto the land, the residents that are right there. What are the impacts they're seeing on their docks? When maybe a Bay Island that was out there catching the fetch of the wind coming across the bay, and all of a sudden they're like, hey, I gotta put a couple extra lines on my boat now. Like I am noticing a difference, right? So embracing the community and the taxpayers association for that understanding of that, like what and the why, like Rick was saying earlier, like what are you doing, why are you doing it, and you get that project team on the how you're going to address it, and that is universities, federal partners, nonprofits. But you can see what we're looking at. You can see this, right? Once you start to understand maybe what a natural and healthy shoreline, you can see this, and they have all different names for them: terracing, all of these things, calving, all the damage that these wind and wake and sediment deficits do. This is Stockton University's Coastal Research Center out there, marking the grid, getting all of the data that we need to understand how this area is, and the students, the graduate students through the Coastal Resilience Collaborative. If anybody has any family members that are looking, Stockton has a wonderful program and running through in all sorts of coastal engineering study, database, GIS, and the students have really been the backbone of this data collection. Monmouth Urban Coast Institute here also, these students with Dr. Harrington here, they're deploying and they're trying out like new equipment. That's a shallow water wave meter they had never used before. They put it out there so that they could understand in shallower portions of that area how to trend, what direction. And also the Urban Coast Institute, in one of the grants, we were able to install a tide gauge. This is filling a data gap. And again, it's accessible to the community, to the students, but it's informing the science on how to design something, understanding the tides and the differentials and things like that. All university partnership date. So this is what we were looking at, and these lines are indicative. 1977. When we have to work on a project, we have to regulations. And one of the things that we're learning, and I don't know if anybody, is in the regulatory business or not. What I've learned now is the 1970 Tidelands line, historically, like that is where you can build your restoration project to. And the new language that we're trying to push is that we feel that the current regulations are keeping us in the past, right? They're keeping things as they were. And sometimes it's a single species, regulation, and they're not looking holistically enough. And restoration is trying to take us out of that and into a future of restorative practices for a more holistic look at the bay's health. So I know there's been a lot of things in the paper where a lot of the coastal towns are against the real rules, the acronym, and I think that gets a little bit confusing. Unfortunately, the regulations didn't separate out the on-land municipal land use and in water restoration regulatory streamlining. So it's a shame, and hopefully they do, because when we say we're not for the real, we're not for the upland uh, uh, way they're addressing some municipal land use stuff. The restoration and regulatory effort that's happening, they're softening this line. And when I read that in 1,000 pages, I'm like, oh, there's a glimmer there. They're softening that line. They'll let us put dredge material outside that 77 line, understanding that you can't draw a line in the water. And historically, if the bay is shifting and the sand is shifting and the sediment is shifting, we can't keep things the way they were. So we were trying to keep within the boundaries, building a series of these breakwaters here that we proposed for the full shoreline project, at least to get the cut, to get this southern western part of that cut where you can see where the blue line is. That's where it was. The red is where it's growing. Like this area is gaining sediment on the northeast side. So it's shifting, and we're trying to just stabilize it by putting some of these um, structures there. Sand placement and plantings all would go in that. But this is a multi-year federal grant, and they take forever, and they're very frustrating at times, and it's eroding quickly. So we came up with this design. When I say we, I mean Tom Harrington and the Urban Coast Institute, because they can do preliminary design up to 30%. They're engineers, but they're not engineers to where they can get it to 90% and do that. We came up with this interesting concept of utilizing shell bags and oyster castle framework. Because we have shell available from our shell recycling program, we thought that this was a good idea rather than, and we did learn a lot from Reclam. We learned a lot from Mordecai. They showed us where they did shell bags. They showed us where they did oyster castles. It's even though Mordecai is so close to Clam Cove, it's different. The energy is different. The water levels are different. So we took pieces of that and tried to apply it in this pilot hybrid. But we also had shell available, right? We're like the superstar township in the state of New Jersey, collecting shell from restaurants, post-consumer shell for restoration. And currently, right now, this month in March, we just received an Innovation and Governance Award from the League of Municipalities for oyster reefs for Bay Island restoration and stabilization. That's like a new idea. Like where we have colleagues that are establishing oyster reefs, the Tuckerton Research Reef with Parsons and Stockton, stabilizing Bay Islands. We have a lot of work doing that in Mordecai. We're trying to see what that interface of the two things together could be to set up a model, a large scale model for how these sort of hybrid reef structures could function ecologically and also in a stabilizing and restorative way for marshes. If anybody has some shell that they bring home from restaurants, we have set up a drop off. So you just have to call ahead to our DPW. We introduced this last year. So, we figure you'll keep it really clean if you're going to put it in your car, and just clean shell oysters and clam shells. You can bring that to our DPW yard. We cure our shell over in Manahawkin, and we've been storing shell since 2023 for our Bay Island project. Prior to that, we were contributing our shell from 2017 to 2022 to the Tuckerton Research Reef. But why do we have so much shell, right? Because we have a lot of, buck a shuck. We have a lot more volume coming into the waste stream. We have 15 oyster farms in our bays. This is a new thing over the last decade. So the more we have in the waste stream, the more we understand as a priority in New Jersey that we need to make sure there's as minimal shell in the landfills as possible, because they're a high value commodity. They need to be back into the water.
Hey, Angela,
Yeah,
can you go back to the former slide that had that address?
sure.
I just want to I want to do a screen scrape of that, but then also to remind people that that's a really that question has been coming up more and more. Where can I have a lot of friends that like to eat raw clams in the in the summer and steamed clams. And it's like, where can I drop these off? So I
Yeah,
just want everybody to take a look at that. And I wanted to do a little screenshot of that. I appreciate it.
of course. Got it?
Hang on one second.
Okay.
I got it
Technology,
now.
don't you don't have to tell me.
Thank you.
No problem. Um, so you're diverting the shell, and we have a priority for restoration as a municipality, which is why we do that. We're still the only town. We have other groups and colleagues that are picking up shell in various locations, but as a municipality, we have it as a priority, and it is it's a way that people can have a hand in it. They're eating local sustainable shellfish grown in our waters. They can share it with their friends at a local restaurant and know that that shell is going to return back into the water and have an additional purpose. And that inserts you into the story. We're following the shell. That is my son Liam. He was a shucker in Bistro 14. He's 14 years old here. He's 24 now, and he's the farm manager at Barnegat Oyster Collective. And he came for a Q&A with me the other night at Reclam's dinner and a movie. They screened my film, The Oyster Farmers, and it was great having Liam there to be able to really talk about how things have come along in the last 10 years. So again, just to kind of reiterate what Clam Cove looks like, and understand that we have a lot of shoreline and that the federal money is a little bit slow. So we were able to go and find community money to supplement, to say, we've got to hold ground. That cut ain't stopping. And I don't know, I'm going to guess everybody gets a New Jersey Resources, New Jersey Natural Gas envelope in the mail, or they get an email saying that thank you for your payment. But if you read into some of the New Jersey Resources as the parent company to New Jersey Natural Gas, the amount of money that they've been, enriching into our community for this type of work. And we were a happy recipient of that funding from them. And they provided funding to our partner, Urban Coast Institute, because we're government. So they gave it to our partner specifically for this pilot oyster reef breakwater. And so they've come down, they've put sweat equity in, they've had their retreats there, they've come down and bagged shell. They are awesome. And the New Jersey Corporate Wetlands Restoration Partnership as well. Those are local companies in New Jersey coming together, all, giving corporate donations. And several of our colleagues have received this funding. It's super powerful for New Jersey to have these two locally based, community sourced funding opportunities that invest in this type of work, because that's always the thing, the how, right? That we were saying early on. This is how. They're really enabling us, and they're very invested in our projects. So with that funding, we were able to start our project in December or November, a little bit. Stockton came out. You can see they flagged the area where we put the reef right off of where the cut is. So Stockton back again after doing the preliminary assessment. They did the bathymetry under the water to lay out and mark the corners, to understand how the bay bottom works, understand how sediment moves in the system, and if that area can sustain the weight of what we're trying to put there. Will it sink? But they found it's very sandy. There's a lot of new sand coming in the system through the inlet. We'll assume from the ocean front, perhaps from replenishment. Since it has not been proven, we're guessing it looks very similar to beach sand. But this is, again, partnerships in action, making it happen. You can see that cut again. This is an area all of a sudden this chunk of marsh went, but you could see them out here marking the corners. Very, very vulnerable piece of this. And by the time I get to 2027, fulfilling my federal grant to do the full shoreline, I fear this whole spit will be gone. And that would change the functionality of the plan that we already had in place, right? So we have something, an engineer puts a plan together, and then nature has another, fate for your shoreline, and will it work? I don't, you know what I mean? Those are the questions. So we started with oyster castles, that we learned from our partners at Reclam and our partners up at Earl Weapons Station and Urban Coast Institute. This is something that they will retain oyster spat, they'll create reefs, they'll strengthen shorelines, they'll be the framework. Fun fact that we found out as a municipality, we couldn't purchase from that company directly, excuse me. They didn't have a New Jersey BRC, a business registration certificate. So those are just some interesting little tidbits that we're like, oh no, like, what do you mean? Like we have people up here that use it. They're like, no, for government. So we're learning because we're trying to innovate, right? As a town. We didn't have great success with the integrity of the blocks. Every pallet of the 32 pallets we got had a minimum of 4 to 10 broken blocks. So that was interesting. This is really the big thing for us to understand. This has been the idea all along. Who's doing the work? Well, we have done workforce development. We wrote that into our grant because as a municipality, these are my water and sewer guys, this is my DPW guys. We know that marsh is part of our infrastructure, right? We don't just go to the street end, the outflow pipe, the backflow preventer, the bulkhead. We understand the function of these marshes and what they mean for flood control, storm mitigation, habitat, all of it. And we're very, very proud. I mean, it was dynamite having them interface with our academic partners out there installing this. We acquired a retired barge from the Ocean County Bridge Department because early on in the story, I told you that the county owns part of Clam Cove, right? We bought that in cost share. Of course, the township 51%, and the county 49, but this was awesome. We got it for $1. And we were out there every day and in December and we got the framework completed and workforce development because we want to integrate this into how our municipality functions. It's not like, oh, when Angela's not here anymore, we're not doing this kind of work anymore. This is a priority because we understand, just like the ocean front and the beaches, the marshes are the sister companion to what holds us all together. And here we are with the Monmouth Urban Coast Institute. And we have to give a shout out to Holgate Marina. They let us store all of our equipment there, keep the Monmouth University boat there. Bob from Holgate Marina is a superstar, and we couldn't thank him enough. We couldn't have done it without him allowing us to put our equipment there. But you can see one of the lines, you can see where it's already from when Kim put a line up. There was a tip there. And even in that short time, it's already rapidly disappearing. So, but we got it in. This is the goal, right? This is what we're looking to do. These are ribbed mussels with wild oyster spat on them along the edge of a healthy and beautiful marsh in that rich detritus. This is what we're going for. This is what we're looking for the edges to look like. So if you're ever out there and you see these outcrops of things in the marsh, the ribbed mussels really hold it together. They hold the grasses together. They enrich the grasses. They filter the water, but we're seeing wild oyster spat. And that is an assessment we did in the Clam Cove area. So we are not putting spat on shell. We're not putting spat on anything because we feel there's enough wild in the area that it will adhere to the shell and the framework. So we'll be putting the rest of our, shell out in June, closer to like that spawning time. So this is it's a terrible picture, but this was the drone image this is the design idea on the spit, and this is what we're trying to build, and this is what it looks like in for real. This was just recently our PD did that. So you got 2023 shell and 2024 shell in our framework. It's about 100 by 20 framework there. So this was just after the ice, because we're like, oh my God, wait, of all the years for it to freeze, So there's a lot of things with the drones, though. Like our PD luckily has appropriate drones. When you're getting federal money now, we've just learned you can only have certain types of drones, and they have to be made in America. So if our university partners say don't have that particular type of drone, they will be able to use it in the portion of their contribution to the federal funds. So there's a lot of nuances and there's a lot of changes federally, to say the least. This is the shell that we cured over on the mainland. And we want to thank any of the volunteers. If there's anybody here that has bagged up shell, um, it's getting used. We did have a little bit of a learning curve on the shell bags and the material. So thanks, big shout out to Bill Walsh and his crew. They were looking at some of that orange material is a Bessie bag from the Netherlands, and it's a slow dissolving, and the white is also a Bessie bag, and it's a fast dissolving. We found that they also degrade in the environment before they go in the water. So we were storing them, and we realized the integrity of the bags started to get brittle. So Bill got a couple of his reclam crew and helped us rebag some of the bags that were losing their integrity. So, we're learning. We're trying to not put plastic in the water. We're trying 5 different types of material to do that, but you got to read the fine print. Yes, okay. Apparently, sun and rain and that on the bags does start to degrade its integrity before it goes in the water. So, lesson learned. Um, but this is a picture of the Tuckerton Reef, some of the shell that we put in years ago, and that being successful. Um, and that's from the Stockton Field Station. So there's 2 different partners that we've been dealing with. But the big picture here is we're trying to do everything according to the way the regulations are telling us to do things. And we'll hope it's transferable to the other islands. We'll hope it's transferable to other communities. One of the other resource groups that we work with that I think uh, people should know about is the Coastal Resilience Collaborative. We just had a really big conference last year, or last month, I'm sorry. But the peer-to-peer networking that we do at the Municipal Resource Group, I think it's important that the public knows that we're trying to create these relationships town to town for people doing this type of work, and how communities and municipalities can navigate through these really big heady things that are not commonplace for a town to do. So some of the things that we talk about when we're doing our peer-to-peer work, right, is what's in your master plans, ordinances, the community rating system, all of these things, cost efficiency, regional capacity. These are things that we as towns need to talk to each other, right? How we're interfacing with the permitting. We have all this regional resilience planning they want us to do, but they certainly don't have any regional resilience permitting. It's project by project, and that is not doesn't jive. And if we all talk about it together and understand how to approach permitting in a universal way, maybe we'd have all better chances. So these are some of the things we're doing community to community. But some of the things that just people can do, is just, very, very basic things, but it's really just gaining an understanding of how these systems work, placing a value. Fall in love with the marsh and the marsh grass, just like you're in love with the beach and the beach grass, understanding weather and tides and how they've changed over time. It doesn't have to be a political thing. It's a system. It's changing. It's never going to be exactly the same as it was for every, year. So the more we know as we live here, the more we can improve our livability and make sure we're here for generations to come, right? And it's all just, if we do it together, it's like the more that you know. But of course, in those emergencies and understanding, you just have to have a plan, right? You have to understand that there are risks no matter where you live. We're hoping that the marsh capacity increase can help improve the livability, but we understand that we're under a lot of storm threats and things like that. But it just helps everybody become more resilient, and that's the name of the game. We love it here, and we want to be here forever. So, thanks.
I couldn't get unmuted. Wonderful. Well, the reason that I wanted to do that screenshot is I did get the address of Long Beach Township Public Works, and it does say to call ahead.
Yeah.
Do you need to call ahead?
Yeah. Yeah. We don't have them right now they're not in the front
Okay.
because they're hardly used and the wind was getting to them. So once we get into the season, just call and then we have them in the back, but we would prefer to know people are coming. Um, you know, so
Well, I mean, as I say, that's a really great thing. People have been asking for that for a while, and I'm really happy that you have that. One comment, there are just a couple of comments. I did put a link to the NJ Burp uh, in the uh, chat section, so if anybody
okay.
wants to copy that down. But it's really pretty easy because it is just NJ by
Bay Island.
njbayisland.org. Very, very simple. Um, and so there was a comment. It said, in dealing with excessive wakes, suggest in addition to the education portion, cameras could be installed by the islands to capture any speeding boats, much like Easy Pass does to catch violators. Warnings can then be sent out for any initial violations and then followed up with strict fines for any additional violations. There are just not enough police to monitor this activity.
That's it.
Um,
That's exactly it.
Kind of a cool idea. The problem is electronic things and salt water just don't work very well together. Um, I've always and the thing is you need to be able to get the number off the boat, and a boat at 25, 30 miles an hour is really tough to get that registration number off the bow.
Yeah. So
Um,
we have had the state police come every month at our Bay Island meetings. We have special guests come every month. So if you're interested in that, please join us. We have private homeowners, we have private island owners, we have agency people. That's the magic of the Bay Island Coalition is you have a spot there. And we've had the state police on there. And so that's where the big wake, big mistake came out of was so we can't rely on just the agency capacity out in the water during these times. We don't want anybody interfacing with someone who's maybe buzzing by or anything like that. But the more we know, the more we can get public education out there, the more we can help maybe reduce it and have a consciousness put into the waterways and the users. We did have specifically the people that design the safe boater course. I know there's going to be one offered at St. Francis Community Center soon, if it hasn't already. We're trying to bolster that curriculum. Everybody has to go get a boater certification, and there's nothing in there about impacts to shorelines. Maybe one question about distance, like what is the distance? I don't even know if there is that question. So when we got the state police guy on the call to present with us, we asked who designs that and how we could do that. So trying to get it. That's the way to make the change. We can't chase every boat down, but perhaps just starting at the beginning, integrating consciousness into that certification uh, could do something.
yeah, and I know that the county sheriff is very interested in helping out, doing what they can. They now have a couple of sheriff jet skis to, of course, there's a real problem with jet skis liking to go down these small, narrow waterways as fast as they can, which is double, triple mistake wake when you get in a confined area and you're throwing that much wake. But I think it's the awareness, and I'm very pleased that people think about these kinds of problems because when you get down to it, it's really us interacting with our friends and neighbors, reminding people, hey, your kid was a little wacky out there in his jet ski, that's hurting the environment. Maybe you can mention something to them. And kind of neighbors helping neighbors. Let's see if we have any other comments. Great big thank you from Amy Williams. You may know the name. It's such a small community. Well, anyhow, all good. Well, thank you very much, Angela. This is very informative. I really appreciate it. I'm glad I could be on this call. Next week, Ben Worst is going to be. Ben's got so many things to talk about, ospreys and everything else. So tell your friends and neighbors to tune in next week. We've got another dynamite presentation, and thank you all for coming, and thank the foundation for hosting it. And see you all next week.
See you later.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.